Every year, millions of people sit down and make a promise to themselves: lose weight, write that book, finally organize the apartment, eat healthier, get better at work. And yet, just as predictably, most of these promises fail. People hate resolutions, the guilt, the pressure, the constant feeling that they're falling short. And yet, year after year, we return to them. Why do we do this? Why do we insist on making resolutions that we already know will resent? The answer lies in something deeper than motivation or time. Resolutions are about identity. They are promises to become a different version of yourself. Not just to act differently, but to feel different, to inhabit a new self-image. When someone writes, exercise 3 times a week in a planner, what they're really trying to do is declare, I am the kind of person who exercises regularly. That is different from saying, I will exercise. One is about habit, the other is about self-conception, and that distinction is crucial. We hate resolutions because they confront us with a paradox. We want to be someone else, but we live in the body, habits, and environment of who we are right now. The friction is immediate and undeniable. Neuroscientists studying habit formation explain why this tension is so uncomfortable. The brain resists sudden, radical change. Dopamine-driven reward systems favor short-term satisfaction over long-term identity shifts. The longer the goal, the less immediate the reward, and the more our mind rebels. So even the most well-intentioned resolution feels like friction against our own self. Yet we keep making them, because resolutions let us practice hope. Even if nothing changes, writing down a goal or sharing it out loud allows us to inhabit a potential self. It's aspirational, not functional. And that aspirational self is compelling. It gives us a lens to imagine a life we can't yet live. Even failures provide data, not evidence of inadequacy, but a map of what we want and what prevents us from reaching it. There's also a historical dimension to this. The idea of a New Year's resolution as a moral or personal improvement goes back centuries. In the 17th and 18th century, Puritans would reflect on sins and promise moral reform. By the Victorian era, self-help manuals encouraged young people to make yearly commitments to character development. These early resolutions were never about diet or productivity apps. They were about who you were as a human being in the eyes of yourself and society. That means the ambivalence we feel isn't modern. It's baked into the tradition. The tension between aspiration and reality has always existed. Social signaling also plays a subtler role than people think. We often think that we make resolutions in private, but the truth is, even unspoken resolutions are a form of self-communication. They remind us who we want to be, and when shared with others, they amplify that effect. Telling someone, I'm going to write every day this year, is less about accountability and more about staking a claim on an aspirational identity. It's a psychological handshake with yourself. I am the kind of person who does this. And because identity carries weight, failing a resolution is not just disappointing, it's a clash with the self-image we wanted to hold. That's why people hate resolutions, yet keep making them. They are uncomfortable, they expose gaps in our behavior, they remind us that we are not perfect. But they also offer a mirror. They allow us to practice imagining who we want to be, even if we stumble along the way. They let us rehearse hope, and hope, after all, is powerful enough to keep us returning to the same ritual year after year. The people who navigate resolutions successfully are often those who reframe them. They stop thinking about resolutions as a checklist or a moral trial. Instead, they treat them as experiments in identity. Maybe they don't commit to losing 20 pounds, but they try walking 10 minutes a day. Maybe they don't write a novel in January, but they commit to 5 minutes at the page each morning. These micro-resolutions respect the friction of human psychology while still allowing for identity exploration. They focus on who they can become gradually, not on an idolized version that exists only on paper. In the end, resolutions are less about achieving goals and more about the tension between aspiration and reality. They are uncomfortable because they expose the gap between the self we inhabit and the self we desire. They are magnetic because they let us inhabit that aspirational self, even if briefly. And that's why every year, despite resentment, guilt, or frustration, we return to them. Not because the calendar demands it, not because marketers convince us, and not because the world cares, but because we can't help ourselves. We want to imagine who we could be. And even in that discomfort, there's value. So this year, when you make a resolution, notice that tension. Notice the gap between aspiration and reality. And let it be a tool for reflection rather than judgment. Resolutions aren't magic, they're mirrors. And in looking in them clearly, you might see just what you want to change, but who you really are and who you might become.